The House will come to order. Announcements by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. A message from the Senate has been received requesting concurrence by the House to amendments adopted by the Senate to the following House File number 1234.
Conference Committee reports on House files.
Conference Committee report on House File number 1370, an act relating to public safety. The report is addressed to the Honorable Melissa Hortman, Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bobby Joe Champion, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House File number 1370, report that we have agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report is signed by 2 out of the 3 members on the part of the House and 3 out of 3 members on the part of the Senate. Stephenson moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House File number 1370 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
I recognize the author, the member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The conference report on this bill includes the deepfake language that had been previously passed by the House with very minor modifications, but we also did add into the conference report the age-appropriate design language that passed the House as part of the Commerce Omnibus. I ask for members to support a motion to adopt the conference report.
There is a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Farr moves that the House refuse to adopt the Conference Committee report on House File number 1370 and that the bill be returned to the Conference Committee.
I recognize the maker of the motion, the member from LeSueur, Representative Farr, to explain your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is my motion. I request the roll call.
Representative Farr has requested a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call on his motion. Representative Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, had the opportunity to sit in the conference committee and agree with Chair Stephenson's comments on the deepfake bill. But the age-appropriate design code was not heard in the Senate floor and was not passed in the House Commerce Conference Committee. Was not adopted there. And so I think there's some work to be done there. And while I appreciate the comments that were made yesterday in the committee saying that we would continue to work on this, I think we've got well over a week of session left. I would ask that we take this back and get it right, because it creates many new definitions and requirements regarding data and personal data. And it creates some difficulties for compliance and will require gathering and maintaining of significant personal data. And so I think we need to take a look at that and get that corrected, because Minnesota doesn't have an underlying data privacy law that's or a specific enforcement agency for this, and we're going to rely on the AG's office to take care of this. And I'd like to take it back to conference and get this right, Mr. Speaker. That's my motion.
Further discussion on Representative Farr's motion to refuse to adopt the Conference Committee report. I recognize the member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wholeheartedly encourage a vote to re-refer. The reason the deepfake bill, I think we all voted for it, and I voted for it as well, but the age-appropriate design code is not even in the same chapter of law. It is not, and I think that trying to tuck it in at the last minute in conference is really kind of a stretch at best. There are some things that weren't even worked out in the Senate, and then you just dropped it in last minute. I think that is well over your skis, Representative Stephenson, and I have known you to be more thorough than that. When we have tried to do things in the past, when we were still fighting for the liquor bill, and I encouraged us to maybe, I believe my words were, helicopter something in. You said, no, I won't do that. And now we have seen that you're doing that. Very disappointing. I think that it is a mistake. The age-appropriate design is an issue that is still being worked out, does not have unanimous buy-in from all people here even on your side of the aisle in the Senate. Not sure why you had to skip your own major committee bill and then put it into this other bill. You know, you didn't even have full buy-in from your conferees in the Commerce bill. You chose not to put it in, but now you're here with this bill. And I agree with Representative Farr, this should not move forward. You have plenty of time left, and you know that better than anybody else. A handful of days here in the tail end of session is a lot of time. You can take this back to committee, fix it, and make it so that your deepfake bill, which a lot of us support and have spoken in favor of, is not tainted by this.
Further discussion to the motion. I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, members, here we go again. We have debated on this floor hour after hour after hour this session about germaneness and whether things belong in bills through amendments, and guess what happens? Comes back from conference committee with a little baby born in there that was in another bill. We couldn't get it done. So what are we going to do? We're going to drop that one off at the door in the bill that unanimously passed, or pretty close to unanimously passed, off the House floor. Representative Farr, Representative Nash, I think we have a chance on this because we know how important it is for germaneness and the appropriateness and titling of bills to the majority party, that I fully expect that that board is going to be agreeing with everybody on here to do the right thing. So let's get a chance to see what's going to happen here in just a matter of moments, ladies and gentlemen. Stand by.
Further discussion to Representative Farr's motion. I recognize the maker of the motion, Representative Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is my motion. I ask for a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll on Representative Farr's motion to refuse to adopt the Conference Committee report for House File 1370. The clerk will close the roll. There being 58 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and is not adopted. Members, we are now on discussion of the Conference Committee report. Is there any discussion before we vote on adopting the Conference Committee report on House File 1370? All those in favor? I recognize the member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know that, frankly, I mean, we've already discussed the problems here. We've just had two completely unrelated items thrown into a bill for political purposes. This is how things happen now at the end of session when we don't have transparency. This is what the people in charge do. They take two completely unrelated things that can't get agreement in other areas, but they got to close that up. So we're just going to pluck this out of one spot and dump it into another, having completely nothing to do with each other. These are completely unrelated bills, but here we are, hearing them again. And it's incredibly frustrating, especially when we have a bill like the deepfake bill that is pretty widely supported. I think everyone in this chamber voted for the deepfake bill. And I also think that half this chamber voted against the age-appropriate design code bill. And there's really good reason for that. It's a bad bill. It's constructed poorly. The reality is, many of us actually agree with the foundation of the problem, right? I've got teenagers. Many of us have kids, and we are really concerned about what is happening online. Several of us signed on to a different bill that, frankly, was constructed much better and would have done a much better job without the constitutional issues that this bill has to address the problem. But as I looked at as I looked at this bill, it appears that nothing has really changed. The only thing that's changed, and I'm trying to pull it up, is this new language that nothing in this chapter may be interpreted to impose liability in a manner that is inconsistent with United States Code Title 47, Section 230, or otherwise infringe on the established rights and freedoms of children. It's the only thing that changed in this bill. The construction of the bill has not changed. The problem that, this is being put forward along with the UK and the state of California, both of whom, both entities have individuals who would oversee this program. And in Minnesota, we will just be giving that authority to the Attorney General's office, which, boy, we have loved to do this entire session. The Attorney General in the state of Minnesota is going to be one of the most powerful people in the state of Minnesota following this legislative session. Hugely problematic. But we haven't given him the rulemaking authority to go with it. This bill is still constructed poorly. It doesn't do what you're getting at. And, we had an entire discussion one day on the elections bill on foreign influence in our elections. This is the second bill now, actually maybe the third. We found another one where the language that the Democrats proposed was model language from somewhere else. But this one certainly, this isn't just foreign influence in elections. This is literally language directly from the UK. This did not originate here. This is directly being imported from foreign entities. It's amazing. Again, it's unfortunate what the Democrats are doing. The Democrats are taking completely unrelated issues, plopping them together in gamesmanship, with a lack of transparency, literally without any Republican input whatsoever. And I want to be very clear about that, what that means, because frankly, the 64 of us over here on this side of the aisle, you don't have to care about what we think. I get that. I get that, I assure you. However, you should care about what my 40,000 constituents think. You should care what the 48% of Minnesotans think that were elected by us. That viewpoint should be considered in what you do. But it has been completely ignored. And instead, we take a very bipartisan issue that everybody agrees with, we lump it together with, frankly, a piece of garbage. It's not ready for prime time. This will not be implemented properly in the state of Minnesota because it can't. You haven't even given the tools in the bill language for it to be able to do so. It's silliness. It's nonsense. What we should have done is sent this back and fixed it. But instead, and in fact, this is what we heard. We heard that on the Senate side that there have been assurances that we know that it's a problem, but we're going to fix it next year. We promise. We promise we'll fix it next year. Folks, when we pass things off the House floor, it should be ready for prime time. When we pass things off the House floor, it is because we believe they are ready to become law. We should not pass things off the House floor with the intention of fixing it next year when it's already law. Guess what? Newsflash, you'll still be in charge next year. I'm not sure if you're aware, but you've got another year and a half to do whatever the heck you want. So why don't you choose to do it right? Why don't you choose to take your time and do it right? Why don't you choose to take the time and at least have a conversation with the other half of the state that thinks what you're doing is kind of problematic? This is arrogant. It's arrogant, it's irresponsible, and it's just not good lawmaking. Like, just do the work. Do the work you were called here to do. Do the work. Make it right. I've told a lot of people this year. I get it. The Democrats in the House chamber have been passing their ideological bills for the last 4 years. I get that. I've always understood it. But I always believed that if your ideological bills were actually going to become law, you would fix them. And you would at least make sure that the words on the page worked. That you would at least make sure that the laws you were passing could be implemented. You would at least make sure that the laws you're passing would stand up to legal scrutiny, constitutional scrutiny. But you don't bother. It's been shocking, actually, that bill after bill after bill, and we tell you, here are the lawsuits that are coming. You don't care. That's all right. We're going to pass it anyway. Don't worry. We'll just fix it next year. Folks, none of us are buying it. You're not fixing anything. There's going to be lawsuits. You're going to be challenged. You don't have the tools in place to actually even implement this. Just fix your stuff. Vote no, fix your stuff.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Daimler, state your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to a point of order under the Joint Rules 2.06. It says, in all cases of disagreement between the Senate and the House on amendments adopted by either House to a bill, memorial, resolution passed by the other House, a conference committee consisting of not less than 3 members, nor more than 5 members from each House may be requested. It goes on to say that a conference committee report must be limited to provisions that are germane to the bill and amendments that were referred to the conference committee. A provision is not germane if it relates to a substantially different subject or is intended to accomplish a substantially different purpose from that of the bill. And Mr. Speaker, the addition of the age-appropriate design in House File 1370 is not germane. I would ask that you would find this point of order well taken, and I will request a roll call.
Representative Daimler, we don't do a roll call on points of order. Is there any advice for Representative Daimler's point of order? I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Mr. Speaker, advice. My advice is, first of all, I would note under the rules of the House, Rule 6.4, it says that a conference committee report may include only subject matter that's similar to what was just read. It goes on to say, or like subject matter contained in a bill passed by the House or the Senate. The age-appropriate design material was passed as part of the Commerce Budget Bill. It is like subject matter to the deepfake bill. Both of these deal with the potential harms that large and advanced technology can have on people in society, and particularly children, which is why the bills make sense to be paired together. So I would ask that you find Leader Damis' point of order not well taken.
Mr. Speaker, advice?
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we have gone down this road before, and I talked about my least favorite baseball umpire, Angel Hernandez. You're now trying to expand the strike zone heavily when you have in times past said, no, it has to be in the exact same chapter and subchapter of law, and you ruled us out of order. That was after you ruled that it was in order, and then you came back and ruled it out of order. So I was going to talk about this on third reading, but I'm going to share it right now. If you grew up on Sesame Street like I did, you might remember the song, "One of these things is not like the other." So the lyrics are, one of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. Can you tell which thing is not like the others by the time I finish my song? So the chapters of law are completely different. They're not even adjacent to each other. But under the DFL germaneness paradigm, you will just say, well, as long as it's sort of in the neighborhood. And that's like saying, if I'm in the neighborhood in Waconia, you're considering that I'm just about to drop in on Leader Dameth in her neighborhood. Apparently, that's how close you view these things. Members, one of these things is not like the others. I mean, if you can hear the jingle in your head, go ahead. One of these things is not, Mr. Speaker, this is mostly for you, because you're about to make a ruling. This is not like the deepfake bill. And Chair Stephenson, you have a bill that we all supported earlier. I am not supporting it if you don't strip this out. And just because the age-appropriate design code got orphaned in your committee and someone appealed to you to stick it into a bill that it really doesn't belong into, I'm going to invoke once again the conversation that you and I had, I think it was 2 years ago, when I said we should really find a home for some of these free the growler pieces of legislation. You said, no, Jim, I'm not going to do that. And I said, well, you know what? I will honor that because you're sticking to your word and because you're trying to be honoring, you're going to honor what it should be going on here, which is an institutional behavior of not putting something that is completely unrelated into it. But today, mark that down, May 12th, once again, the Angel Hernandez strike zone has come to bear. It is now going to be completely outside. And I just think that Minnesotans should watch. Minnesotans should know that you put something that is not ready to move out. It's going to create a patchwork across the U.S. It's problematic, so problematic that you, Mr. Chair, decided not to put it into your commerce bill when you had an opportunity to. And then you blinked. So again, one of these things is not like the other. So my advice, Mr. Speaker, is that you find Representative Dameth's point of order well taken. Thank you.
Members, I have considered advice from Representative Dameth, Representative Nash, and Representative Stephenson. I have reviewed the report. I have also reviewed House Rule 5.05, and I find that the point of order is not well taken.
Mr. Speaker, I appeal the ruling of the Speaker, and I do request the roll call.
Representative Dameth requests an appeal of the ruling of the Speaker, and now is the perfect time to request a roll call vote. And seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call vote. Discussion to your appeal on the ruling of the Speaker, Representative Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we have been having conversations about germaneness in this chamber for the entire session, we have been challenged. There's been a time that the Speaker has put it before the body, that the Speaker has overturned, and then we have lost on that. This is not an area that we want to lose. And it's not about just which side is going to win. It's about doing the right thing for Minnesotans. We cannot put a section of law into a conference committee and accept that when you know there was unanimous or near unanimous report on the underlying deepfake language. That is the right thing to do for Minnesotans. I know that you, Mr. Speaker, are going to be hearing from a number of my colleagues as we point out why this is germane and why we would request you to overturn this ruling. But again, Mr. Speaker, as you're making that decision, do what's right for Minnesota. Do what's right as we're accepting a conference committee report. Send it back to conference, and I ask again that you would take this information and make the right decision in the chamber today.
Is there any further discussion to Representative Dameth's appeal to the ruling of the Speaker? I recognize the member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Chair Stephenson stand for a question?
He will yield to a question. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you. Representative Stephenson, can you just let us know which committees the age-appropriate design code bill was heard in?
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Mr. Speaker, Representative New Brindley, it was heard in the Commerce Committee, and I believe it was heard in the Judiciary Committee. And I'm looking at the chair of the Judiciary Committee, who just gave me a thumbs up, so it was heard in the Judiciary Committee.
Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would Representative Stephenson yield for another question?
Representative Stephenson will yield to another question. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Stephen, can you let us know which committees the deepfake bill was heard in?
The member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative New Brindley. That bill was also heard in the Judiciary Committee, and I'm getting another thumbs up. And then, but I remember that one because it was my bill. And it was also heard in Public Safety and Elections.
The member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And frankly, my point was just made. The deepfake bill started out in the Public Safety Committee. Oh, excuse me. It started in the Elections Committee. It is under the jurisdiction of the Elections Committee. That's the deepfake bill. That means its primary subject matter started out in the jurisdiction of the Elections Committee. And then it was also heard in Public Safety and Judiciary. Frankly, almost every bill goes through Judiciary for something or another. The Age-Appropriate Design Code bill, however, is under the jurisdiction of the Commerce Committee. These bills are so different that they're not even under the same committee of jurisdiction, let alone the same chapter of law or same subject matter. I mean, come on, you guys, this is so ridiculous. You've got a week and a half to get your work done. Frankly, you got a year and a half, because again, you guys are still in charge, newsflash. But instead, you're gonna play around with the rules like this? These are not even in the same committee of jurisdiction. They have one overlapping committee stop out of 5. One overlapping committee stop. That again, here is almost every bill for something or another because it has something to do with data. You're saying that the data piece is the crux of these 2 bills? Come on. You make a mockery of this place. It's so absurd that you would argue that these 2 bills are substantially similar. It is absurd. There is no universe in which these bills belong coming out of the same conference report. And frankly, thank you, Representative Demuth, Leader Demuth. I hadn't even looked. I didn't even realize that this was going to happen. I actually was just talking about the fact that these bills do not resemble each other at all, and they were just plopped together because the Democrats can't figure out how else to get their work done. They can't figure out how to get their work done according to the rules that are in place to make sure we don't do stupid stuff. That's why those rules are in place. Those rules are in place to maintain order. They're in place to maintain transparency for the public. But the Democrats can't follow those rules, so they're just going to do it their way. And then when we call them out on it, they're going to say, well, clearly they're substantially similar. No overlap in the sections of law. They're not even out of the same committee of jurisdiction. This stuff is ridiculous, folks. Stop. You got a week and a half. Just fix your stuff. It's not that hard. Take your bills back and fix your stuff. Is this really how the last week and a half of session are going to go? This is really how we're going to play this game for the next week and a half? We're not even being difficult. We're coming in when you tell us to come in. We're not staying here for hours on this stuff. We're not even being difficult. All we're doing is asking you to follow the rules. All we're doing is saying, listen, make sure that your stuff is germane. Make sure that you got your crap together. It's not that hard. But instead, you are going to make us sit here and fight about this. Instead, you are going to try to convince the public, why no, of course, these are substantially similar. This is virtually the same thing. Get out of here. Come on. Like, this is nonsense, you guys. Just grow up and do your work. Do it right. It's not that hard. Figure out how to play nice in the sandbox. Go talk to your senators, whatever you need to do to get your work done. But doing this is just not right. It's just wrong. These rules are in place for a reason. They maintain order, They maintain transparency so that the public can know what the heck is going on down here. And you're just flaunting all of it. It's nonsense. I would implore you to overturn the ruling of the Speaker with a red vote.
Any further discussion to Representative Dameless' appeal to the ruling of the Speaker? I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask members to uphold the ruling of the Speaker. As Representative Stephenson pointed out correctly, the Rule 6.40 governs what is coming back in conference committees, and like subject matter is the test. That is a different test from germaneness. That is a different test from what we apply on the floor. As Representative Newbrinley helpfully pointed out, both bills were heard in the Judiciary Committee, which confirms that they have like subject matter, and both deal with harms from technology, as Representative Stephenson pointed out. And in the case there was any conflict, as the Speaker ruled under 5.05, conflict between joint and House rules, the Speaker's decisions govern, and I would ask that we uphold the ruling of the Speaker.
I recognize Representative Dameth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you have heard our reasonings why we would encourage a vote to not uphold the ruling of the Speaker. As we go to that roll call vote, Mr. Speaker, would you please remind the body of what a red and a green vote mean? Members vote to not uphold the ruling of the Speaker.
A green vote upholds the ruling of the Speaker. A green or yes vote upholds the ruling of the Speaker, while a red or no vote appeals to the ruling of the Speaker. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the appeal of the ruling of the Speaker of Representative Dameth's point of order. The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 58 nays, it is the judgment of the House that the ruling of the Speaker shall stand. Members, we are now on discussion of the Conference Committee report of House File 1370. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, while this bill builds upon legislation which was already passed in the UK and in California, this bill in its current form is a dramatic improvement over either of those existing laws. It's been well vetted not only by this body, but by national experts on the topic, all of whom are telling me that once this bill passes, it will be the model legislation that will be adopted by other states across the country. Thank you.
Further discussion to the further discussion to the Conference Committee report for House File 1370. There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House File 70, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No! The motion prevails, and the clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
House File number 1370, third reading, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Is there any further discussion? I recognize the member from Wright, Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I refrained from rising prior to now. As a co-author on the underlying bill prior to its being bastardized, I didn't want to engage in any of the theatricality regarding germaneness or rules. I find that boring. I think Minnesotans do as well. What I find interesting, educational, relevant, is the way in which this moment stands as an unfortunate affirmation of the cynicism I came here with in the first place. I'm a pretty cynical person by nature. And I try to be optimistic. And sometimes I see moments for hope, moments for optimism. I've talked about that before. Every once in a while, you'll see times where we all come together, times where we have an all-green board, like we did on this bill when it passed out of this house on the floor. And those are good moments. Moments where I have side conversations with those of you on the other side, in the hallway, in the retiring room, and we're connecting. We're seeing things eye to eye. This really sets that back for me as a co-author on this bill. I feel like a sucker because I believed that I could be bipartisan. I was the only Republican who signed on to this bill in this chamber, only one. And I was told that I shouldn't have. And I ignored it. I said, no, it's a good bill. It does good things. It's a proactive bill. This is something we should have came up with. Majority's ahead of the curve on this one. And I was actually pretty excited about it. But now it comes back with language that, despite the conversation we just had, the debate we just had, we all know, come on, we all know it's not germane. We all know one bill has nothing whatsoever to do with the other. We all know that if that bill could pass onto its own, you would have done it that way. Because as has been noted, you have the time. And of course, we all know, because we have it on record as part of the journal of this House, that everybody in this room supported the underlying bill before this happened. Uncontestable. And yet here we are. It's like you're trying to come up with ways to make things less agreeable. And for that reason, aside from just the underlying disagreement with the substance of the text that's been added, which, unlike the original bill, which was well thought out, well considered, well deliberated, what's been added to it is half-baked, not ready for prime time, unconstitutional, foreign-influenced. This is legislation that came to us from the European Union. We're somehow going to try to copy and paste into American jurisprudence. Not going to work. Spoiler alert. It's inexplicable to me why you would do that. So I'm going to be a no vote. I'm going to ask other members to vote no on this as well. And that's a shame, because the underlying bill prior to this conference committee was a good bill that had unanimous, universal support in this chamber. So, thanks.
Is there any further discussion to the conference committee report on House File 1370? I recognize the author, the member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is important legislation. Both the deepfakes legislation and the age-appropriate design legislation get at emerging problems that are critical to the state of Minnesota. I strongly urge its support, and I thank Representative Bonner for her good work on age-appropriate design.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 57 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to. Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read the messages.
A message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 3100, an act relating to retirement. The message is signed Thomas S. Bodern, Secretary of the Senate. Her moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 3100 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Hurd, to explain the Senate amendments.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate amendment just adjusts a couple of technical things that was overlooked when we put the bill together. It adjusts the assumed rate of return rate and then the effective date, and other than that, the bill remains very much the same.
Is there any further discussion to the Senate amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails, and the clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 3100, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Is there any further discussion? I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I urge a yes vote on this. Unfortunately, this is what happens when the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate try to rush through their work. We miss things, the technicalities of things, and we just saw a bill shortly ago where that same issue is happening. Finally, thankfully, we were able to catch this and take care of it so we don't put into statute incomplete and unworkable laws. And I encourage a green vote on the repassage of House File 31 because the work has been done properly on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Is there any further discussion? I recognize the author, the member from Ramsey, Representative Hurd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also ask everyone for a green vote. As Representative O'Driscoll stated, this is a really good bill, and all of the work that should have gone into it did. And just a reminder that this bill actually has almost half of them have Republican bills and provisions in it, and the other half is from our side of the aisle. It is very much a bipartisan bill, and I ask for the support. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on House File 3100 as amended by the Senate. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to. Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read the message.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 782, an act relating to retirement. The message is signed Thomas S. Bodern, Secretary of the Senate. Becker-Finn moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 782 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn, to explain the Senate amendments.
Yes, thank you. That is my motion, Mr. Speaker. Relatively minor amendments, a couple of typos that were fixed, and then updating the language on employee leasing companies, and then clarifying that the board would recommend penalties to the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement instead of requiring the penalties. We should repass this very good bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any discussion on the Senate amendments to House File 782? I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And one of the amendments that I did offer was taken to this bill that does help make it a better bill, but as it comes back from Senate, it is not a bill that is needed here in the state of Minnesota, given the Secure Act 1.0 and Secure Act 2.0 at the federal level, making it much easier for employers and others to get involved in a retirement planning program. This just creates additional bureaucracy in the state of Minnesota and puts an extra burden on our small businesses, along with other bills that we will be hearing here this year as time goes on. So I recommend a no vote, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Is there any further discussion to the Senate amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 782, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Is there any further discussion of House File 782 as amended by the Senate? I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, once again, we're competing with the private sector here in the state of Minnesota with this bill. It's not necessary. And members, this isn't the right thing to do. There's plenty of information out there about how to set up your own retirement accounts. And this is just something that government should not be doing. Please vote no.
Further discussion. I recognize the member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was a silly bill when it left this chamber, and it's a silly bill coming back. Here's the deal. You know, we've talked a lot about the $10 billion that are being raised in taxes by the Democrats this year. $10 billion in tax increases on top of a $17.5 billion budget surplus. But what we haven't talked about is the fact that all of these mandates and burdens on employers are just another tax. These are costs on small businesses. That's what this is. So just add this on top of the $10 billion that you've already raised in taxes and add it on again for our small businesses. It's an easy no vote.
Further discussion of House File 782 is amended by the Senate. I recognize the member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And related to Representative New's comments, I would encourage members of the body to open up the Star Tribune and review an article from the Federal Reserve that did a study on the minimum wage increases that the other side of the aisle imposed on this state. It may come as a shock to some who think that this legislature can be exempt from the laws of economics, but we sat on this floor when we debated the increase in the minimum wage and said that you were going to be costing people money and costing jobs. And the Federal Reserve has come out with an exhaustive report showing that, in fact, we were right. That yes, wages went up, but what happened was people worked less. They were given less hours. Their take-home pay went down. And so we have here today another example of the government sticking its nose where it doesn't belong, mandating things that are really not even in the best interest of the employee. If by any chance there's someone out there who's not covered under an existing retirement plan with your employer, let me give you a much better way to do it where you can save money. All you have to do is do a self-directed IRA. Do a self-directed IRA, put it on your tax form before you submit it in. When you get your refund back, you will then be able to use your refund to deposit the money into the self-directed IRA. Okay? You actually end up paying lower taxes. You end up having a bigger contribution and a lower expense rate. That is something that is involved in financial education for citizens. That would be helpful. A government-run mandated 401k program, silly, dumb, and unnecessary. I'm voting no.
Further discussion to House File 782 is submitted by the Senate. I recognize the member from Clay, Representative Joy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This one just surprises me again. With my private businesses, I'm surprised that I'm sitting here and I hired Minnesota to manage my business. Everything we are doing down here for small businesses is constant forced on us. There's no guideline saying that 2% of their wage is going to be this or what it's going to look like. There's a board that's going to establish this. But is this good for businesses? I mean, as I read through this and I look at everything coming down to small business, whether you have 1 employee, 2 employees, 3 employees, it's constant force from the state government down here. We get a choice when we buy a business. We get a choice when we build a business. You know, I have kids that work in my convenience store that are 16 years old, just starting the workforce. Now I got to sit them down and say, hey, you want to invest in the retirement? I got to take time and do all that. Then their parents come in because they don't know what a retirement is yet. They haven't learned it in school. It's just not taught. And now they got to sit there and they got to go, oh, well, what's this all about? And we got to manage this. They can opt in, they can opt out. So if we get an employee that's disgruntled and they sign an opt out and all of a sudden they go and say, well, I was forced to opt out. Now they're going to come after us business. Every time we turn around, I mean, it's like, I don't know if Minnesota just wants to own the businesses, our small businesses, or what's going on. Everything is being forced, and this is ridiculous. And you know what? Democrats are destroying the state. I cannot believe sitting here saying, I thought we'd get some bipartisan work done. Nope, everything's fast-tracked. Here we go. Let's get done early and go outside and applaud and watch businesses get destroyed. You know, I mean, this isn't going to attract people from North Dakota because we offer a retirement at every small business. That's not going to do that. We've taxed people to move across that river. You know, vote no.
Further discussion to House File 782 as amended by the Senate. I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Let's go back to when we had the original debate on the floor on this. And there was some confusion about how the plan was going to work, that we were talking about, well, maybe money would be collected and sent to the State Board of Investment. The State Board of Investment would go ahead and invest this on behalf of the employees who these contributions were being withheld from. I set the record straight that said, really what's going to happen is the state of Minnesota is going to develop a board and a bureaucracy that will go out and do RFPs that will bring back a private sector administrator for this, who will use private sector mutual funds that are privately managed, very much the same way that Representative Garofalo said one could do a self-directed IRA. All we are doing is putting another barrier between the individual and the provider of these services by mandating this in the state of Minnesota. But then the next day, we also learned that Minnesota needs to create a brand new agency of 400 people to do something else. Now will certainly be a conversation for another day. So on some days, we'll hire the private sector to do things, as Representative Scott has said, and quoting former Governor Tim Pawlenty, if it's in the phone book, we don't need to be doing it as government. This is definitely in the phone book for folks to be able to do this. Please vote no for this unnecessary regulation. Increase in support. Literacy, financial literacy in school, where it will actually, the rubber meets the road, and give these younger folks a chance to be able to learn about budgeting, saving for their retirement, individual financial accountability and responsibility. Again, members, vote red.
Further discussion to House File 782 is amended by the Senate. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Or just remind members what bill we're talking about. This is the Secure Choice Retirement Plan, and the American Retirement Association said it best that this bill strikes the proper balance to close the retirement plan coverage gap in the private sector workforce to the greatest extent possible while imposing the minimum possible burden on Minnesota employers. This is a very good bill that is supported by ARP, the ARP, the Minneapolis Chamber, Minnesota Council on Nonprofits, and many small business owners like myself. Please vote green.
The clerk will take the roll on the consideration of House File 782 as amended by the Senate. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 57 nays, the bill is repassed, is amended by the Senate, and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution number 5, relating to adjournment of the House of Representatives and Senate until 2024. Long moves that the House Concurrent Resolution number 5 be now adopted.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Long, to explain your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is just setting the date of adjournment at May 18th and acknowledging that we will be returning on February 12th, 2024, if that is our date of adjournment. And I'd ask members to support this motion.
Further discussion to Representative Long's motion at the House on Concurrent Resolution number 5. I recognize the member from Stearns, the Minority Leader, Representative Damath.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I just want to point a few things out. As you are looking at this resolution that would have our adjournment May 18th, next Thursday, I just want to remind this chamber and the public what is still left to be done. These are the bills that we still need to finish up in less than a week if the concurrent resolution is passed today. The bills that we still have to work on are early childhood, public safety, commerce, environment and energy, state government, education, taxes, transportation, workforce and economic development, health, human services, cannabis, and paid family leave. And members, when we came in January to do this work, we were coming in under full Democrat control. You have the votes, you have the majority in the House and the Senate, and I wouldn't be surprised if you could get the work done. But in conference committee and realizing that we have quite a list left that you need to complete your work in, I don't actually see how May 18th is possible. If we go to what we expect would be May 22nd, members, there's 248 hours left. You back it to May 18th, and there is much less. And I want to remind you, as the minority party, what we've noticed in committee and in this chamber throughout the session. In committee, we've heard that some of the testifiers are being limited by only 2 minutes of testimony because we have so many people that wanted to testify on a particular issue. Well, limiting the public's testimony in committee is not a transparent way to do government. Easily, the majority could bring those committees back, you could recess, you could bring them back, and make sure that the public has full input. I know that our members in a number of committees were not allowed to ask the appropriate number of questions, that we still wanted to vet the bills, maybe find some common ground and be able to vote for them. Our ability to even ask questions was limited throughout the session in a number of committees. We know of a testifier that had fully planned on testifying on an issue that was very important to them. They had planned on coming in to testify, yet the night before they were notified after 10 p.m., I'm sorry, our committee already doesn't have time for you to testify, so you're going to have to submit that in writing. So your lofty goals of ending this session May 18th, even though it could be done, you will not get this work done in a transparent, fair process for Minnesota. That is not the way to govern. Members, I would ask that you would vote against accepting this resolution. Now, if all of the work gets done in a transparent fashion, and we are done, great, but don't rush through what we've seen or make false promises that absolutely we'll come back next year. We'll pass the bill this year, and we'll come back next year to fix it. That is not the way to govern. I would ask you that you would vote no against this resolution. Let us finish the work that Minnesota expects us to do in a transparent fashion, and then adjourn when appropriate. Vote no, members.
Representative Long moves that House Concurrent Resolution number 5 be now adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion prevails. I recognize the member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move a recess to the call of the Speaker, and I will note that we are waiting for the Senate to finish up its work on the Public Safety and Judiciary Budget Bill. Once they do, we will give members a 30-minute notice until we reconvene.
Are there any further announcements pertaining to recess? All those in favor of the motion to recess, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails and the House stands in recess.